There is a plant sitting in a garden center right now with a little tag that says, vigorous, fast-growing, excellent ground cover. Sounds perfect. You buy it, you plant it, you feel good about filling that empty corner. 3 years later, it is in the lawn. It is under the fence. It is coming up through the patio and into the neighbor's yard, and you cannot dig it out because every scrap of root you leave behind grows back. That cheerful little tag never mentioned any of that. It never does. That is what this video is about. 9 plants that garden centers still sell today with innocent-looking labels, and that will quietly take over your garden in about 3 years if you let them in. And I am going to tell you exactly how each one escapes, because the escape method is the thing the label hides, and it is the thing that decides whether you can ever get rid of it. Now let me be honest with you about the word destroy, because I am not here to frighten you off plants. A couple of these are only a problem in certain regions and perfectly fine in others, and I will tell you which. One of them is not even a foreign invader at all. It is a native plant that just happens to be a thug in a flower bed. So this is not a list of demons. It is a list of plants that spread far faster and far harder than the tag admits, and the difference between knowing that and not knowing it is a decade of your weekends. There is also a reason those labels stay so cheerful, and it is worth knowing. In most places, nurseries are under no obligation to warn you that a plant is invasive. They can sell you something a state agency has flagged as ecologically harmful, right next to the tomatoes, with a tag that says nothing. That is starting to change in a few places, and I will show you the new law that is about to force the issue at the end. So here are the 9 worst offenders and how each one gets loose, plus a safer plant to grow instead of every single one. And number 4 is the one that can genuinely affect whether you are able to sell your house. First, what invasive actually means, because the word gets thrown around and it matters here. Invasive is not just a fancy word for a plant that grows a lot. A plant is invasive when it is non-native and it escapes cultivation, spreading out of gardens into the wild, where it outcompetes and displaces the native plants that local wildlife actually depends on. The problem is ecological, not just tidiness. When goutweed carpets a woodland floor, or purple loosestrife takes over a wetland, the insects and birds and other plants that evolved alongside the natives lose their footing, and the whole local web frays a little. But here is the honest complication, and you need it before we start naming names. Whether a given plant is invasive depends heavily on where you live. English ivy is a genuine menace across the eastern United States, in California, in Hawaii, and it is classed as a noxious weed in the Pacific Northwest, and in other climates, it is a manageable garden plant. Rankings vary from one state agency to the next. So when I tell you a plant is invasive, take that home and check it against your own region, because the answer really does move. And there is a second category worth separating out, because one plant on this list belongs to it. Some plants are native and still behave like thugs in a garden. They are not ecological invaders. They are not escaping into the wild to do harm. They are simply so aggressive that they will bully everything in your flower bed and lift your paving. That is a different problem from a true invasive, and it deserves a different, calmer kind of caution. I will flag it clearly when we get there. So 2 questions for every plant coming up. Does it escape and harm the wider environment? And will it wreck your own garden? Some of these do both. All 9 do the second. Number 1, and it is the one that is probably in your kitchen already. Number 1. Mint. Yes, mint. The herb on your windowsill, the one you grow for tea and cocktails and lamb, is one of the most aggressive spreaders you can put in the ground. Mint spreads by underground runners, stems that travel sideways beneath the soil and pop up new plants wherever they surface. Plant one small mint in a border, and within a couple of seasons, it has marched through the whole bed, into the lawn, around the vegetables, everywhere, and pulling up what you can see does nothing because the runners are still down there sending up more. I want to be fair to mint, though, because it is the mildest offender on this list. It is an aggressive plant rather than a true ecological invasive, and it will not generally escape to wreck a wild habitat the way some of the others do. It will just quietly conquer your garden. And the fix is genuinely easy, which is why so many experienced gardeners still grow it. Keep it in a pot. A container or a large pot sunk into the ground with its rim above the surface so the runners cannot escape over the top. Grown that way, you get all the mint you want and none of the invasion. So mint is the gentle warning at the start of the list. The plants get harder to stop from here. Number 2. Running bamboo. Bamboo makes a stunning privacy screen, tall and green and exotic, and that is exactly why people plant it, and exactly how the trouble starts. The key word is running. There are 2 kinds of bamboo, and this is the single most important distinction in this whole section. Clump-forming bamboo stays roughly where you put it and rarely causes problems. Running bamboo spreads through a network of underground rhizomes that shoot out sideways, often surfacing well away from the original clump, and those shoots are tough enough to push up through concrete and asphalt. New canes appear in the lawn, along the fence line, in the neighbor's garden, and by the time you notice, the rhizome system is enormous and established. Getting it out is brutal, months or years of digging and cutting. If you love the look, 2 safe routes. Choose a clump-forming variety, or plant a running type only inside a proper rhizome barrier, a solid physical membrane sunk deep into the ground that forces the shoots up to the surface where you can cut them off. Some states already list certain ornamental bamboos, like golden and yellow bamboo, as invasive, and they are still on sale. Number 3 is the one that climbs, and it kills trees. Number 3. English ivy. The classic evergreen climber, planted everywhere to cover walls and fences and bare ground because it is cheap, tough, and grows in shade. It grows so well that it becomes one of the hardest things on this list to live with. Ivy does its damage 2 ways. On the ground, it forms dense mats that block light from everything beneath them, smothering other plants and taking over whole beds. And it climbs, up walls and up trees, and that is where it turns dangerous. A tree wrapped in ivy is slowly being killed because the ivy blocks light from the trunk and lower canopy and piles enormous weight into the crown, which makes the tree far more likely to come down in a storm. On buildings, it works its way into brick, wood, and mortar and pulls them apart over time. This is the plant where region matters most, so hear this clearly. English ivy is invasive across the eastern United States, in California, and in Hawaii, and it is a declared noxious weed in the Pacific Northwest, where it blankets huge areas of forest. If you garden in those places, do not plant it. If you already have it climbing a tree, cut it at the base and let the upper growth die. Instead, for evergreen ground cover, look at wild ginger, Allegheny spurge, or the tidy native creeper kinnikinnick. Number 4. Japanese knotweed. If you take one plant away from this video and never let it near your garden, make it this one. Knotweed is in a category of its own, and it is the one that can genuinely affect whether you can sell your house. It arrived as an ornamental with handsome bamboo-like stems and sprays of white flowers, and it spreads by rhizomes that run far underground, sending up new shoots several feet from anything you can see. It grows close to 10 feet in a single season and crowds out everything near it. The rhizomes push through pavement, tarmac, drains, and cracks in foundations, and eradicating it takes years of dedicated effort, sometimes professional treatment, because the tiniest fragment of root left behind starts the whole thing again. And here is the part that makes it different from every other plant on this list. In many places, knotweed on or near a property affects mortgages and sales. Lenders ask about it. Surveyors flag it. Its presence can lower a property's value and stall a sale outright, and there can be legal liability if it spreads from your land onto someone else's. This is not a weeding problem. It is a plant that shows up in the paperwork when you try to move house. Do not plant it, obviously, and if you spot it, get proper advice rather than digging in and making it worse. Now, a quick word, because the thread running through all four of these is the same, and it is the reason this channel exists. Quick one, right here, because every plant so far has had the same thing in common, and it is the whole problem. You could not tell what you were getting from the label. The tag said, fast-growing ground cover, and what that actually meant was runners under your fence, or rhizomes through your patio, or a vine that kills trees. The information you needed was knowable. It just was not on the plant. That gap between the cheerful label and what the plant actually does is the single most expensive thing in gardening, and it is not unique to invasives. The plant I get asked about more than any other suffers from exactly the same problem, from the opposite direction. The hydrangea. Because a hydrangea is not one plant, it is 6 different types wearing one name, and the label almost never tells you which one you have, so people prune at the wrong time, chase a color the plant cannot produce, and cannot understand why it will not bloom. So I wrote the honest version down. It is called the Hydrangea Mastery Guide, and it does for hydrangeas what reading past the tag does for everything in this video. It sorts all 6 types in about 90 seconds, so you know exactly what is in front of you. It gives you the prune by type calendar, so you never cut off a season of flowers by mistake. It explains the real reason the color changes, which is not the pH, whatever you were told. And it walks through the 5 myths that cost people an entire year. 29 pages, $27, instant PDF, 7-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the description at waltgreer.com. It also ends the way this channel always ends, with the part nobody selling you a miracle will admit. 4 of the 6 types cannot change color at all, no matter what you pour on the soil. Fertilizer will never fix a hydrangea that will not bloom. A guide that only tells you what to do is only half a guide. Back to the list. Numbers 5 and 6, and 6 is still on sale at big box stores, despite being one of the most hated plants in gardening. Number 5. Wisteria. This one hurts to put on the list, because wisteria in full bloom, those long cascading racemes of purple flowers dripping off a pergola, is one of the most beautiful sights in any garden. The beauty is real. So is the damage. The offenders are the Asian species, Chinese wisteria and Japanese wisteria, and they are astonishingly vigorous. The vines grow thick and heavy and woody, and they wrap around anything nearby with real force. Given a young tree, wisteria will spiral up it and strangle it, girdling the trunk and pulling it down under the weight. On a structure, it does the same to your pergola, your gutters, your downpipes, twisting and crushing over the years. In warmer regions, it escapes gardens and does this to forest trees in the wild. You do not have to give up the flowers, though, and this is the good news that runs through the back half of the list. There is a Native American wisteria, Wisteria frutescens, that gives you the same gorgeous purple cascade with a fraction of the aggression and none of the ecological harm in North America. If you want wisteria, that is the one to ask for. Plant the native, skip the Asian, and prune it regardless, because even the polite one wants managing. Number 6. Goutweed. Also sold as bishop's weed, ground elder, or under the prettier name snow on the mountain, with variegated green and white leaves that look fresh and bright in a shady spot. It is still stocked at big box stores, and it is one of the most genuinely hated plants among people who garden seriously, for one simple reason. Once you have it, you may never be rid of it. Goutweed spreads by a dense underground network of rhizomes and forms thick mats that choke out everything else. The problem is removal. If you leave the smallest fragment of root in the soil, and you will, because the network is fine and extensive and brittle, it regrows from that fragment. People have fought it for years. There are support groups, only half as a joke, for gardeners who welcomed it in and then could not get it out. It also escapes into woodland and displaces native plants and stops young trees establishing. If you want that bright, variegated ground cover for shade, there are safer options that stay put, like the native wild ginger or a well-behaved spotted dead nettle chosen carefully. Whatever you do, do not let goutweed in on purpose. The people who did are the ones warning you loudest. Number 7, roots itself wherever it touches the ground. And number 8 is banned outright in a lot of places. Number 7, creeping jenny. Sold everywhere, especially the golden-leaved form, Lysomachia numularia aurea, because those bright chartreuse leaves spilling over a pot or a wall edge look genuinely lovely. It is one of the most popular container and edging plants there is, and it does not stay in the container. Creeping jenny spreads by rooting wherever a stem touches soil. Every point of contact becomes a new anchor, so the plant travels outward in a dense mat, laying down roots as it goes, and smothering low-growing plants and emerging seedlings underneath it. It loves damp ground, and from a garden it escapes into wetlands and stream edges, where it crowds out the native plants that pollinators and seed-eating birds rely on. Several U.S. states now list it as an invasive nuisance, and it is still on the shelves. In a contained spot, a pot with no soil contact around it, it can be managed. But once it is loose in a border, especially a moist one, you are in for a long fight. For that same low, spreading, bright foliage effect, safer choices exist depending on your region, and a native ground cover from a good local nursery will give you the look without the takeover. Number 8. Purple loosestrife. Tall, elegant spires of magenta-purple flowers, striking in bloom, and this is the one on the list most likely to be flatly illegal where you live. Many states and provinces prohibit its sale and planting outright, which tells you how seriously the damage is taken. Loosestrife's crime is wetlands. It escapes into marshes, ponds, ditches, and riverbanks and takes them over completely, a single plant producing enormous quantities of seed until a diverse wetland becomes a solid stand of nothing but loosestrife. The native rushes and sedges and wildflowers vanish, and with them the specific habitat that waterfowl, amphibians, and countless insects need. It is one of the most damaging wetland invaders on the continent. Because it is prohibited in so many places, the simplest advice is the clearest on the whole list. Do not buy it, do not plant it, do not accept a division of it from anyone, and if you want that vertical spike of purple, plant blazing star, or meadowsweet, or the native blue false indigo instead. Check your own state's prohibited list, because there is a real chance this one is on it. Number 9 breaks the pattern, because it is not a foreign invader at all. Number 9. Trumpet vine. And this one is different, deliberately, because I want you to see that aggressive and invasive are not the same accusation. Trumpet vine, Campsis radicans, is native to North America. It is not a foreign invader. Birds and hummingbirds love its big orange trumpet flowers, and in the wild, in the right place, it has a genuine role. Put it in a normal garden, though, and it behaves like a thug. Trumpet vine spreads by suckers, sending up new shoots from its roots, often a surprising distance from the parent plant, and it seeds freely on top of that. The vine itself is heavy and woody, and will pull down a fence or a trellis that is not seriously built. And it is persistent in the worst way. Cut it down, dig it out, and it re-sprouts from the root fragments left behind, coming up in the lawn and the beds around where it stood. People report fighting it for years after they thought it was gone. So the caution here is a calmer one. This is not a plant harming wild ecosystems that it does not belong to. It is a native plant that is simply too vigorous for most gardens, and if you plant it, you do so with your eyes open. Give it a big, tough structure, well away from the house and the good beds, and expect to manage the suckers every season. Native does not mean polite. That is the 9. Now, how to protect yourself. and the law that is finally about to make the labels tell the truth. So how do you protect yourself when the label is working against you? 4 habits, and none of them cost anything. Before you buy any plant you do not know, look it up. Search its name with the word invasive and your state or region, and 30 seconds tells you what the tag will not. Your state extension service or Department of Agriculture keeps the real lists, and those are the sources to trust, not the marketing. Read past the adjectives. Vigorous, fast-growing, spreads quickly, excellent ground cover. Carefree are the tag's polite code for a plant that may not stop. Those words are not automatically disqualifying, but they are a signal to go and check before you commit. When something is a known spreader that you still want, contain it on purpose. Mint in a pot, running bamboo behind a proper rhizome barrier. Containment is a legitimate way to grow an aggressive plant safely. And ask for the native alternative, because there is one for nearly everything on this list. American Wisteria for the Asian kind. Native honeysuckle and trumpet honeysuckle. Wild ginger and Allegheny spurge for ground cover. You lose almost nothing in beauty, and you gain a plant that behaves. One thing is finally starting to change. Virginia has passed a law, taking effect in January 2027, that requires retailers to put clear signage on certain invasive plants at the point of sale, naming them and pointing customers toward non-invasive choices. English ivy and both Asian wisterias are on that list. It is the first real move toward the tag telling you the truth, and it is worth knowing which way the wind is blowing. Let me pull the whole thing together. Before we finish, send this to one person you know who just planted something because it was cheap and covered a lot of ground fast. Just the link. A 30-second look at the label might save them a decade of digging. Here is the whole thing in one idea. The plant tag is a sales pitch, not a warning label. It tells you what a plant does that sounds good and stays silent on what it does that ruins your weekends. And for these 9, the silence is the whole story. Mint and running bamboo will conquer your garden by runner and rhizome, and both are easy to enjoy safely in a pot or behind a barrier. English ivy climbs and kills trees and is a serious invader in much of the country, so check your region and skip it there. Japanese knotweed is the one that turns up in your house sale, and the only right move is never to plant it and to get advice if you find it. Asian wisteria strangles what it climbs, so grow the beautiful native instead. Goutweed and creeping jenny are ground covers you may never fully remove once they are in. Purple loosestrife is illegal in a lot of places for good reason. And trumpet vine is the honest reminder that even a native plant can be too much for a normal garden. Every one of them was avoidable with 2 things: knowing what the plant actually is and reading past the cheerful words on the tag. That is the entire skill. Look it up, check your own region, contain the spreaders you love, and ask for the native alternative, because there is one for nearly all of these. Subscribe and hit the bell and stick around. We do this the honest way here in the Forgotten Knowledge Library, which means the plant that will let you down as readily as the one that will not, and the regional caveat instead of the blanket scare. It is free, and it always will be. And drop a comment telling me which of these 9 is already in your garden, because I have fought at least 2 of them myself, and I would genuinely like to know which one found you. Next time, another thing the label sells you that the plant never agreed to. I will see you in the next one.